Chiteba is a blossoming rose that is flourishing by watering other roses. She left a very lucrative, high-level corporate career to start an initiative that mentors, empowers, and inspires young millennial women to find their purpose. KUPES Women's Network, founded by Norena, targets not only the underprivileged women, but also privileged women who need to rediscover themselves. Norena's vision is to create an impact on women so that they too can create an impact on families, communities, and nations. Featured on Star with Roses, Norena shares the value of finding your purpose and investing in others. Hi there, my name is Rose Sibisi. Welcome to Star with Roses. On set today, I've got a phenomenal woman and I can't wait to share her story with you. I've got the delightful Norena Mutoya Chiteba. Listen to those names, even the names themselves ooze elegance. Norena, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I like the way you put Norena Mutoya Chiteba.
I needed to make sure that I'm pronouncing them properly. You know how it is.
I know.
There's nothing worse than mispronouncing someone's name. No. I think it's a big deal.
It is,
and especially when we're talking roses.
I know.
Welcome to Star with Roses.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted and very humbled to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Yeah. You know, so much is going on. And as women, especially this is Women's Month in Zambia, so yes. Coming up in March. So I was just so excited when I was just looking at the guest list, and today there was you, and I was like, ooh, ladies and gentlemen, my esteemed guest today is the owner and founder of KUPES Women's Network. Her story is intriguing because as a rose, she has blossomed and flourished her way into impacting other women in Zambia. Moving away from corporate space, how do you take away that risk? She took a step one day when she was actually climbing up the ladder, and then she thought, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. How do you do that? I mean, nice stable job, cushions, corner office. How do you let that go?
I would not necessarily, can I even put it as letting it go?
Okay.
I remember from African Banking Corporation, now Bank ABC. I was there for quite a while, about 7.5 years. That's where I started my banking career in investment services. And by the time I was leaving the bank, I was the head of marketing and communications.
You see, big title.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then from there, I moved to Finance Bank. In Finance Bank, it was I was assistant director for marketing and communications.
Wow.
Then my last assignment in the corporate world was with Standard Chartered as head of corporate affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I think it's almost very difficult for anybody to wrap their head around the fact that I left the corporate world, and especially, Standard Chartered, because I mean that's like you've
that's
landed.
A creme de la creme.
I know.
Well, not advertising,
but it was like, how could you do that? But at that particular point, I had to make a decision. It was more personal. But at the same time, I got to a point where I knew exactly what I wanted, and there's certain things that I wouldn't have been able to get and fulfill if I stayed in the corporate space. So at that particular point, I had to make a decision, and that, you have to get to a point where you make decisions that ordinarily you would probably fumble and falter.
You
but
struggle with it.
Yeah,
but I had to.
You have to, at that point, you know exactly who you are. It is when you know who you are, then you make decisions like everybody will be like, but how could you? But I knew that at that particular point, there's certain things that I could not get from the corporate world, and I had to leave that space.
Very true. I mean, I resonate with that. I walked a similar journey, so I totally relate to that. But obviously with you, it's stepping out, knowing fully well that you were going into something else. And that's what mesmerizes me, because it was like you knew, my passion is around women. How did you, let me not speak for you, how did you decide your passion lay with young women, youth in Zambia?
Before we started KUPES Young Women's Network, it goes back to Finance Bank.
Okay.
I used to sit with about 20 young women from the Kabanana area.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my
Kabanana is a compound in Zambia.
Underprivileged community here in Zambia.
Okay.
So at that time I was working for Finance Bank. So on Saturdays or over the weekends, whenever I have time, I would go to Kabanana and spend time with the girls. So this came out as a result of a community library. There's a young man, he was not even young anymore, right? Really, Jiffy would kill me. But he used to have a community library.
Okay.
And I got interested. I used to because I love to read. So I got interested in what happens. And I found a lot of young women. I said, I'd like to spend more time with them. And without realizing, I just got really, connected with the young girls. And I just have I love young women. I love women really because I think we're very special. You know, I love talking to women and getting to find out what are they all about.
We're
and
very complicated, that's for sure.
Yeah,
very
but
complicated.
that's a beauty about it.
Yeah,
that's a beauty about it, I think. So I got into that space. So I started talking to those girls. So that's where it all started back then in 2009 in Kabanana area. And I started with those young women. But over time, I sort of like took a backseat because the corporate world took the better of me. Then I was in a family way. So when I left the corporate world, I didn't really go back immediately into the young women.
Okay.
I took on another activity, but I was still in the similar lines of trying to groom young women.
Okay.
But I think, not even I think actually, I know that the conversations with myself and with God was like I needed to go back to the original idea. So in 2014 I said, you know what, I need to go back and do what I've always wanted to do. Go back and have conversations with young women, and that's now regrouped it. So when we were looking at what will it stand for, so it's basically young women from all walks of life. Because at the beginning, like I said, it was young women from underprivileged communities. But then when I sat back and I said, no, wait a minute, who's talking to the woman who's sitting in the privileged community, as they put it? So we decided to open it up to young women from all walks of life because they also need someone to speak, who's speaking into their lives. So you've got the ones at the bottom, you've got the middle one, you've got the high end, but somebody must have conversations with them, and that's how we regrouped it. I said, that's where I'm going to focus.
Love that, love that. And just to continue on those conversations, we've started with KUPES Network for young women, but there's another dynamic that I want to find out more about when it comes to Norena. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, let's find out more about this dynamic woman. Welcome back. You're watching Style with Roses. Exciting episode today as I talk to Norena Mutoya Chiteba. She likes it when I pronounce her name like that. And just before the break, we had an insight onto how she made the difficult decision to leave corporate and just venture into a KUPES women's network that started out in Zambia, started out small, and she wanted to focus on a particular location. But now it's spreading its wings, and we're really looking at a large garden of roses. And I'm really liking that you're actually thinking bigger, because it's not something that you can actually contain in a box, because you were saying just before the break, you are actually targeting different types of women. Tell me more about that. Not so much the underprivileged, but you said there were other women in different sectors. What did you mean?
All right. The vision, first of all, for the network is that we envision a society where young women have a clear understanding of who they are, their purpose, their self-worth, their capabilities. And can you imagine having, first of all, a community, a society, a country, a continent, a world where young women have a clear understanding of who they are and their purpose?
Absolutely.
If you do not understand your purpose, I'm telling you, Miles Monroe keeps saying it, and I keep saying this all the time, when purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And we have to make sure that our young people, in fact, even if throw in the men, they must be able to understand who they are, their purpose, why they're here on earth.
Yeah.
So when I talked about the trying to get away, not really get away, but to include the other sectors of the young women. So our focus then at that particular point was just the young women from the underprivileged society. But then I said, what about the privileged one? Who's speaking to them?
In the corporate where you came from?
Yes.
What about the middle class woman? Because I know you do some personal branding as well. Maybe
Yes,
is that where you're leading to?
So it's a question of who's having those conversations, because you will find that the ones in the privileged communities, maybe their parents are not home. I almost think of them as, we're sort of like forgotten about them, but they need the encouragement as well. So why not put them together? And I think it's very important to even have them interact and get to know each other, because then they'll be able to understand their backgrounds and be able to see, it was like, is that really, how were you able to overcome that? So we would like to make it, for every young woman, because every young woman deserves somebody to have somebody talking to them.
Okay, so what platforms would you use to have those interventions when you're talking to different groups of women?
So what we do, which is something very exciting, and I think yes, it all started out way back. I was sitting at a was it a conference? It was a seminar for women, and there were like about 4 women sitting and talking. I sat back and I said, you know what? I'd like to do that one day,
this.
where I would invite women who've achieved a lot in their careers personally and God knows what else, and then come and talk to young women. Then I sat there, I was like, I'd like to try this. So now we call it the KUPES chat. So we invite women from different backgrounds. In fact, you should come to KUPES.
I should. I've got so much to say.
Oh yes, I know.
I've got lots to say.
So invite these women to come and speak to the young women. So we call it the KUPES chat. Okay. And at that, obviously, the idea is they will speak to them, and there's nothing better than a testimony and than a story. And then from there, we've been able to create mentorship sessions for the young women.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yes.
Tell me, how often do you have these chats?
These chats are held every month.
Okay.
And we have something even smaller. So we have the chats every month. Then we have what you call the Friday Chills. So Friday Chills are a smaller version of the KUPES chat. So now these are things, now we go a bit more intimate, and then we have maybe 20 or 30 young women at that particular point.
Wow.
So the KUPES chat is big. We have usually about 100 young women, 80 women at any. Yes.
And this is mixed, 100 women from different sectors of society.
Different sectors.
Age groups
they
ranging.
Have to be between 17 and 30.
Wow.
Yes, they have to be between 17 and 30.
But then I maybe I can fit in the 30s group somewhere there. Wow, that is amazing. So these interventions, monthly KUPES chat, and then with the networks, all the other activities. I know you've got an office.
Yes.
In Woodlands.
In Woodlands, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happens at the office?
At the office, like I said, I'll just take you back quickly. When we started the KUPES chat, it was an idea, and I thought it would be great to do this. We started off with 9 young women.
9, and now we're talking over 100.
Now we're talking over 100.
That's the multiplying effect.
Yes. And that's the whole idea. When we were starting, I did not overthink it. I just wanted to create a platform for young women to have somebody speak to them. So we have the KUPES chat. So those are activities. It falls under what we call motivation and leadership seminars.
Okay.
And then we also have training sessions that we undertake. So we talk about interview skills, the professional skills that we want to impart for the young women. So there's presentation skills, how to handle money matters, entrepreneurship skills. The whole idea is to create, like I said, remember, first of all, it's this young woman who's able to understand their purpose, but at the same time, if we're able to equip them with professional skills, with entrepreneurship skills, when we let them out in the world, they'll be able to fly.
So it's about knowing who you are.
Knowing who you are.
Knowing who you are, and that's your identity, and that's your purpose.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? You've already impacted so many beautiful roses out there. You're doing great work, fantastic work. I'd like you to tell us your contact details. But before we do that, much as you've got all these women that you're already impacting, this is Style with Roses. You are a beautiful rose that is flourishing.
Thank you.
And the garden of roses is so many. So we would like you to actually think about passing on a rose. The inspiration, the energy, the guts to be able to walk away. We're not saying everybody must leave their jobs. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is find your truth. Find who you are. Find your purpose. I'm going to hand you a rose, Norena. And I'd like you to pass it on to someone who you feel needs to be inspired, needs to be encouraged to be who they are and to blossom and to flourish.
One.
Well, roses can be like, they're contagious, hey?
And just before I pass on this rose, just to take you back quickly, you're just talking about not necessarily that you're going to get up and leave the corporate world to do what I seemingly did.
Stories are different.
But your story is different and your race is different, but at the same time you have to blossom where you're planted.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do the best that you can wherever you are planted.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you'll be able to bloom like this beautiful rose.
You see?
Yeah. So now for one rose, I'll try and do it 2 ways if you can allow me, but it will eventually get into one.
Go for it.
But the first one obviously is my daughter, Musonda. Yeah. I would definitely love to pass this on to her, and I would like her to blossom into to something beyond what she ever thought she could achieve. And obviously, all my young girls in the network, my goodness, and I wish I could pick any one. It's not possible. And it was like, it could have been me. They're over 100. In fact, we're sitting with over 300 young women right now in Lusaka as well as Kitwe.
Fantastic. There we go. So you've got a network in the Copper Belt as well.
Yes,
and then obviously we're looking forward to all the other provinces. We've got to cover the country. And then the continent.
And the world. And we're definitely going to
we're
achieve that.
We're here to take over.
Yes. So, I mean, for the girls out there, for Musonda and all the girls with the network and any other young woman out there, I mean, this rose is very special. And because it's so special, I'd like them to realize and understand how special they are. We have a mantra at KUPES. We say, I'm wonderfully and fearfully made.
I'm wonderfully and fearfully made.
I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and I'm awesome.
Oh.
And I would like each and every one of them to remember that wherever they go, I want them to remember how beautiful and how awesome and smart they are. And if they can do so much for themselves, I want them to remember that. Because once they understand who they are, they own their space. Nothing's going to stop them. Nothing at all.
Need I say more? That has already been called out to you. Be inspired. Go out and blossom wherever you are. Here is the beautiful Norena telling you she's done her part. She stepped out of her lane. She went out of corporate because her heart and her passion was somewhere else. You can do the same. You can find your way. Where are you planted? You need to go and bloom where you're planted. It's so good to have you. Wait right there. We've got something else coming up for you. We are back. I've enjoyed myself this morning. I mean, I'm speaking to this phenomenal woman who's not selfish. She's spread herself, spread her petals, spread her leaves, all the thorns, everything included. But you know what? Right. You're my home girl. We go way back. We know each other from back in the day. Now we found our way back to each other, you know. Yes. It's amazing, all the work that you've been doing. Well done and congratulations. Thank you very much. Big applaud for that.
Thank you.
You know what? What is so nice nowadays is like, I'm starting to feel kind of like, you know, misplaced because there's so many things that are so different. You know?
I know.
When you think about then and now, things that used to happen back then, I mean, we would walk to school. Remember, you grew up in the same town as me at one point in the Copperbelt.
In the Copperbelt,
so remember we used to walk the streets. How did we used to be able to be on time? Like the professionalism you talk about, we didn't have mobile phones.
No, we didn't have
mobile phones and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So
I think there was just a discipline around it, really. Because like I mean, school wasn't very far, so like 5 minutes walk from home you get to school, and it was just being disciplined and knowing that you have to be at a particular place on time without somebody having to call you, please hurry up, you know, you're late for an appointment, you're late for. It was all the discipline, and I think for more so because of my environment, the way I grew up, also just the. I think that sport for me instilled a lot of discipline because then you know that you have to be on court.
You were a sports girl, by the way.
Yeah, you have to be on court at a certain time. So therefore, it was just the discipline around it. And also then I think it was easy going. There's not so much is happening right now in our communities.
There is, and we've got to make fun of it though. We've got to make fun of it. I mean, I like my funny story will probably be like, I remember at some point we used to wash our own socks when we were going to school. So I had like probably 2 pairs of socks at one point in primary school. And remember, like, did you ever go through where you wash the one pair of socks? And then when it's time to go to school, then you have to put a rubber band around it. You have to come from a certain type of family to be able to do that. And then as you're walking, then they dry along the way. But these days, everything is microwave.
Everything is microwave. But I try to encourage my kids not to just go and throw the socks in. Try and do the best that you can.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, when you talk about then and now, one of the things that we've also decided to do at KUPES is to so like you pass on advice to your younger self. And just to say, mentorship. Basically, what would I tell my younger self now? And so that then maybe you can try and bridge the gap. So then, if back then, and trying to see if you're able to use that advice now would be fantastic, don't you think?
And they do come back. They just never say, "We told you so." They do come back for our advice. They never say, because we tell them, you know what, you're gonna hurt yourself. Yeah. No, mom, those things don't happen. They happen in your time, not in our time. But you know what? It's been amazing having you. I want to talk to you forever. I want to spend.
I don't want to stop.
I want to have a sleepover with you. Like, can I just sleep over and have a pajama party and tell all these stories? But you've been amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. There'll be many more of these because I really want us to keep track with KUPES Women's Network, the wonderful work that Norena is doing. It's started. It's in progress. It's never ending. It's impacting so many lives. And this is what Style with Roses is all about. We want to spread all that blossoming and flourishing of the roses so that the garden becomes more colorful and prettier and wider, because that's what we're here to do. I know who I am. Shine up. for joining us. Until the next time, this is Rose Sibisi.
For the shot, stand by.